If you start today, then over the years you will be able to accumulate passive income, build wealth, but be patient and be prepared that it will take some time to accumulate that. And there is no perfect time to start. You just need to start now, and gradually you'll be able to again accumulate the knowledge and start accumulating wealth.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library.
The book is called Your Legacy on Main Street. Tell us about, so is this primarily your personal journey? Is there a deeper story as to what drove you to want to share this with the world?
Absolutely. Yes, the book primarily is based on my own journey and how I've been building wealth for in my family. But it also includes examples of some of my clients that were instrumental of taking charge of their own investments and taking charge of their wealth and realizing that they need to step out of this Wall Street investment world and add something else to it and start with real estate, because what could be better than not only getting the return on your investment through real estate, but also be able to obtain some tax advantages. And even though I'm a former tax accountant, that former tax accountant is still in me. And this is actually what's funny is that it's usually one of my first questions when I look at any investment is, what are the tax consequences? What is the tax result? And believe it or not, real estate offers many different tax advantages which people are just not familiar with. And I touch upon some of them. I can't possibly cover all, I don't know them all, but I cover some of the tax advantages in my book, primarily the ones that I personally took advantage of in my portfolio. And I want other people to be able to tap into these opportunities and start building wealth for themselves and their families, and realize that it doesn't have to be all on Wall Street. They can do it outside of Wall Street, whether it's real estate or investing in businesses or investing in other alternatives. The main point of the book is, if I were able to do it, where I came to this country with my mom and started with nothing, then other people can do it too. You don't have to start with millions. You can start from scratch, and your hard work and your desire to build something for your family can and will allow you to build something great. You just need to uh, educate yourself and start taking action. And one other important point that I want to bring home is, real estate or passive investing is not a get rich quick scheme. No, it's slow and steady. If you start today, then over the years you will be able to accumulate passive income, build wealth, but be patient and be prepared that it will take some time to accumulate that. And there is no perfect time to start. You just need to start now, and gradually you'll be able to again accumulate the knowledge and start accumulating wealth.
Great. So, Alina, if you can share, whatever information without giving everything away, right? I understand that, your book is just fresh out there, but can you share with us? Because when I hear you say passive real estate strategy, right, I'm thinking the ones that I've learned of, REITs, real estate investment trusts. Are you referring to these? Break that down for us for people who are not very knowledgeable in the space.
Sure, Simone, absolutely. So I'm referring to primarily syndications. There are other ways to invest, but syndication, to describe it in layman terms, is essentially a partnership. Within this partnership, there are two subgroups or subcategories of investors. One subgroup is general partners, or as they're also called, sponsors or operators or syndicators. These are the people that do all the work. So imagine it's a more expensive property. Maybe it costs a million or several millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. So these people find this property, they underwrite it, they decide that it's a good buy, then they put together a group of investors together, and these investors are the second subcategory, which are passive investors, or as they're also called, limited partners, which have the role of literally just investing in a deal, and that's it. The work is done at that point. So these two subgroups get together, general partners and passive investors. They pull the funds together, and then general partners are the ones that take this project from the beginning to an end. All they ask passive investors to do is to review the offering, decide whether they want to invest, and put the money in, and that's it. Um, Now, of course, every investment or every opportunity has its pros and cons. And just on a high level, for this particular way to invest through syndication for investors, the pros are it's completely passive, because once you put the money in, your work is done. So if you think in return of on time, once you review the investment, there is no more time that's needed from you as a passive investor to put into this investing. So the return on time is huge. Um, in terms of the liquidity, this is one of the less liquid investments. Why? Because only the general partners are the ones that are in charge, and they're the ones deciding when to sell or when to refinance this property. You, as a passive investors, have no saying in this at all. So when putting the money into this investment, you need to keep this in mind, and you need to decide for yourself. Okay, if the underwriting says that the asset will be held for 5 to 10 years, then I should not be relying on this money in this investment for that duration. And granted that the underwriting you're given is only an estimate, that means that when you put money aside, you need to realize that this is not the money you're relying on this time, because that investment may take a long time. So it's not liquid, but because you're a limited partners, you have no liabilities, you're not responsible for anything. So you don't have to create your own LLC, because you're investing into the LLC of the asset. An LLC stands for limited liability company, and that LLC is your umbrella, your coverage from everything that's going on with that asset. For you, you can invest either personally or through trust or through company. It's really up to you, but that coverage is for you as an investor, that LLC coverage, I mean. So you have to weigh those pros and cons and decide, am I willing to wait, number one, and number two, am I willing to give up that power, that control, and give that power to someone else, and in exchange for that, get the freedom of time and get potentially good return and good tax advantages. Is every investment always good? No, it always comes with risks, but that risk comes with educating yourself and deciding whether the risk is worth for you taking. And every person risk profile is different, so you need to take the time to review the investment, understand the risks, and then decide whether it's worth for you to take in it and go into the next level. And this is one of the places where I come in when I educate investors, and I guide them through the thought process of deciding whether investment is good for them or not. So just to make it clear, I'm not an advisor. I don't advise people on any of the investments, but I guide them through my thought process, how I decide and how I read and review these investments, and decide when I'm investing passively whether to invest on something or not. So that's been my role, to be the guide for folks.
I'm curious, and I'm sure our listeners are. What level of funding would someone need to come to a deal like this?
Sure. And Simone, I'm going to touch briefly on something you mentioned earlier. You asked me if it was a REIT. No, it is not a REIT. And REIT is Real Estate Investment Trust, which is offering on Wall Street. So these investments are completely off of Wall Street, on Main Street. And that's why we call them Main Street investments. Um, the ones that are offered through the connections and conversations and that are offered through private equity typically start anywhere between 25 to 50 to 100,000. But in the virtual world that we live in, and that makes possible this connection, this meeting between you and me, because we're in two different states, 1,000 miles away from each other, there have been a number of new platforms that are called crowdfunding platforms, and I do touch upon it in my book, that actually offer investing in real estate at a much lower point, and it could be as little as maybe a hundred or a couple of $100. So people can invest at a very low entry point if they decide to, as long as they meet certain criteria. And I can go into that criteria if you'd like, but again, it's all covered in my book as well.
I guess I'm next thought that comes in is what sort of returns are we comparing to the stock market and REITs, for example? Like what sort of returns are these investments offering over time?
Sure, and it's a great question, Simone. Uh, but as my tax professor used to say, there is no single answer, because there is no one size fits all. Why? Simply because different investments follow different investment strategies. I'll just name them without going into details. There's core plus, there's value add, and so forth. Each strategy carries its own risk level and offers its own range of returns. Also, another component of the returns is they are closely attached and somewhat dependent on a real estate cycle point we're in. So the returns could be as low as, I would say, 5 to 7%, or as high as 30, 40, 50, or even 60 and 70%. And I've seen them all during my time investing, and I'm sure I'm going to see more. But again, the answer, as my tax professor used to say, is it depends. Was his favorite answer.
Yes, yes, and it certainly does on the risk tolerance of the person, their portfolio, what their desired goals are, right? All of that, right? I'm sure
All of
you're
that.
taking into
Yep.
consideration.
And the cycle.
The next question, as you mentioned, you would talk about like what sort of, is it a profile?
Eligibility to invest.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
Sure, great question. So there are two profiles of investors, if you will. One is called accredited investor, and another one is called non-accredited investor. So there are offerings, and granted, these offerings are regulated by SEC, Security and Exchange Commission. So there are offerings that are offered to both accredited and non-accredited investors. And again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into those details. But in terms of accredited investors, there are several criteria by which the person can be eligible and can be called accredited investor. Number one is a person can be called accredited by income, and for single people, it's usually someone who is making at least 200,000 in the last 2 years and reasonably believes they'll make just as much in the current year. Or if they're married, that amount jumps to 300,000 for the last 2 years and for the current year. The alternative eligibility criteria is your net worth. So your net worth, which does not include your primary residence but does include all your assets less your liabilities, should be at least $1 million. If you have that net worth, then you're accredited. And the third criteria by which a person can become accredited is the certifications. And it's usually people that are working in the financial services industries and have such certifications as, for example, Series 7, Series 63, and whatnot. This also automatically makes them accredited investors. Everyone else, they are the people that are not eligible to be accredited yet, but understand these investment types. They are considered non-accredited. So I always tell folks, if you're non-accredited and understand the investments, then you know that to become accredited, you need to set up a goal for yourself to become accredited. Just choose the path of least resistance. Choose the path that will bring you to be accredited the fastest, whether it's net worth or income or obtaining that certification. And just pursue that path, become accredited, and that will open up a whole bunch of other opportunities that are available to accredited investors. I hope that made sense.
Okay, so this is primarily like real estate.
Private equity, yeah, syndications apply not just to real estate but to other types of investments, oil, gas, even certain products, and so forth. And accreditation is necessary in the world of private equity, for sure.
Okay. So you mentioned here that people can access cash for doing these sorts of investments, right? I am seeing here on your book where you're talking about HELOC and use of cash or 401k or even life insurance policies. Can you address that and how that's possible?
Sure, and that's part of going from fixed mindset to growth mindset, and that was part of my journey as well, to go through that development. I still, to this day, in some portions of my life, have this fixed mindset, but it all comes down to think of, instead of saying to yourself, I don't have the money to invest, you need to say to yourself, where can I find the money so that I could invest in this amazing opportunity? And it's a matter of being creative and tapping into the different options. And some of the options that I cover in my book, and you mentioned them, Simone, is, for example, life insurance. It's very well covered in the book by what's his name? Nelson Ash, I think it's called The Infinite Banking. I don't remember the author's name exactly, but the book is called Infinite Banking. Essentially, it comes down to setting up a whole life insurance with the right terms that will allow you to tap into that life insurance, get a loan with the life insurance company. Note, as I say, not against your policy, but with the life insurance company, which means that your policy will continue to grow while you take the loan and you use it to invest. When it makes sense, again, in a nutshell, on a high level, when the loan terms are lower than investment itself. For example, let's say you took a loan and it's offered to you right now at a 6% interest rate, and you found investment that pays, let's say, 15%. Well, 15 minus 6 is no brainer, right? So you're going to make money on it. So if you're making money on the investment, and it makes sense for you tax bracket wise, because of course it will make sense if you're in a lower tax bracket and only pay maybe 18 to 20% tax, versus being a highly compensated professional and maybe being in 35 to 37% tax bracket. Obviously it's going to take a huge portion of that return from you. So always take the taxes into consideration, even if you're not a former tax professional like myself. So again, life insurance is one example. Another example that I brought was tapping into your 401k. You can do that as well. And while mentioning these opportunities, I want to make a point and explain to people, I'm not suggesting or advising people to do it. All I'm doing is just sharing with folks the opportunities where there are ways to tap into money, but you always need to, number one, consult with a professional to make sure you're doing the right thing, and number two, decide whether it makes sense for you personally, for yourself, before doing it. I'm just laying the foundation for you to allow you to learn about this opportunity and then make an informed decisions based on that yourself or with the help of qualified professional.
Yes. Tell us a bit about HELOC. I've heard that being thrown around a bit, but I don't fully understand myself.
Absolutely, Simone. So if you own a house and you have some equity in your house, you may be eligible to apply for HELOC, which stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. The line of credit is given to you against your credit, and the way it works is you only pay interest on the amount borrowed. For example, you have a, I don't know, let's say 150,000 of equity in your house, and you decide to take 100,000 of HELOC, a loan on it. Unless that loan is taken out, so if that loan is still with the bank, you pay nothing. But as you take that loan, you start paying interest on it back to the bank. And the positive of it is you only paying loan on the portion that you borrowed. So let's say you only borrowed 10 or 20,000 from that 100. Well, guess what? You're only responsible for the interest back to the bank on that 20,000 that you borrowed. And again, just like with the example of the life insurance policy, if the interest on a loan is significantly lower than the return you're making on your investment, and the difference makes sense for you tax wise as well, to borrow, then you borrow the money, invest in the investment, make the money, and when you receive your principal back, you pay back the bank and keep the difference, keep the return that you made. Does this make sense?
Yes, I think I've just heard people throwing around HELOC, but I have heard of home equity line of credit, so it's the same thing. Duh. Okay. So you mentioned at the start about like tax advantages. You just mentioned it a moment ago. I don't know how much you can share, but just it's clue us in on like some of the tax advantages that are possible out there that you might have mentioned in your book.
In terms of tax advantages, one of the greatest ones for real estate investors is uh, becoming real estate professional. That's usually possible when you don't have W-2, or when your CPA can help you prove that you're eligible to claim real estate professional on your return. And outside of it, investors that have W-2 jobs can take advantage of the tax deductions through depreciation and through the cost segregation study that allows them to take deductions for their investment against the income that they're making on their investment, when the losses are eligible to offset the passive gains that they're making on investment. But again, I always encourage people to consult and confirm all of it with their CPA to make sure that they're eligible in their particular case and it makes sense for them to invest and take advantage of this tax benefits.
Okay. So where can people find you or find your book online, Alina?
Thank you for asking, Simone. The easiest way to find me is by Googling my name, Alina Trigub, or finding me on LinkedIn. Or if they look into find my book, they can go on Amazon. It's available in Kindle and paperback format.
Okay, you mentioned something as we were chatting before we started recording about the whole immigrant mentality and how that may work against some people with the certain mindset that goes along with, being on grinding, as you come over as immigrant. Can you speak to that a bit? And as a person in the financial space, like how have you maneuvered that over the years to make that work in your favor?
I guess because was used to working hard and trying to make the end meets when both my mom and I went to college, I always knew that the hard work and dedication can bring the results to fruition that we were looking for. And I've used it, I still use it to this day. I know that working hard and now also working smart can help and improve the progress exponentially. And nowadays, it all comes down to not just leveraging my personal experience but also experience of other people. And I do it by connecting and speaking with other entrepreneurs and other folks in the immigrant community, like yourself, and hearing their stories, hearing how they progressed, and trying to leverage their experiences and apply it to my life, so that I can continue progressing in my journey and learn from folks like yourself how to improve and continue improving, not only my own life but also impacting other folks in the community and in the world.
Thank you, Alina, for that. I wanted to, out of respect of your time, we like to give you, our guests, a chance to share any faux pas that might have taken place over their journey here in the United States. I'm wondering if you have any humorous moment that you look back on and you smile today and just laugh at yourself, that you didn't understand something or said something or misinterpreted something. Anything that you'd like to share with us?
Simone, I probably have a lot of those faux pas moments, but what comes to mind is one situation where I was very smart not to repeat something that I was told was. So it was my second job after college. So I was in the country for not very long, and worked with young guys, young like myself, and the guys just like to have fun. And when they realized that I was not fluent yet in English, they tried to ask me to say certain phrases to our boss that were not exactly appropriate, to say the least. And how I understood it, I don't know. Maybe I had a sixth sense, but I understood that there was something behind this, and I just simply said, okay, I didn't say I will do it or I will not do it, but I took a mental note, and I decided for myself that I'm not gonna say it. And later on, when I came back home and I was able to translate it, I was like, thank God I didn't say this, because that was would have been so embarrassing if I said that phrase to my boss.
Oh, that was not very nice of whoever that was, right? Trying to
Yeah,
set you
young
up like
folks.
that.
I know, yeah, young kids, young guys wanted to play a prank, but I didn't let them to. So
Yes,
worked
yes.
out
Well,
fine.
good for you. Good for you
Thank
for
you.
exercising that. Any parting words, Alina, that you'd like to leave anyone, or any clues that you picked up over the years throughout your immigrant journey that you'd like to leave with those who are listening?
Absolutely, Simone. I would say uh, anyone and everyone can make it happen for themselves, and I myself is the living proof of it. If you start with nothing, you can absolutely build your way up and create the life you want. You just need to be open-minded, and you need to work hard, and you need to be a continuous learner. If you are open to learning from others, then the sky is the limit.
Very good, very good. And thank you for the parting words to all of us, right? Being continuously learning and can get rough here and challenging for people coming from other places, and the energy it takes to decode this place and then to build a life after all of that. But it is a superpower. Yes, that's my message to people, that it is a superpower, and the sooner you recognize the value that you bring from the other place, the other land that you come from, and then understanding the United States or any other country you find yourself, it can be quite a value that you bring to the table to others. So recognize that. Thank you so much, Alina, for sharing with us today. We enjoyed picking your brain on this new investment strategy about how to fast track wealth building opportunities, or leaving generational wealth for those who are coming behind us.
Simone, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this interview.
We will get the links and contact information from Alina for those of you who are interested in coaching and for buying her book. We encourage you to go out and check out her book on Amazon, as she mentioned earlier. And we'll put you in touch with her if you guys are interested in getting coaching by Alina.
Thank you.
We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.